Groups in Zimbabwe are calling on the government to declare a state of disaster due to the ongoing electricity crisis. Millions were plunged into darkness this past weekend as a major power outage swept across the country. The Zimbabwe Electricity Supply Authority confirmed the blackout, citing a technical fault within the national grid. The latest disruption comes amid an ongoing energy crisis, with residents enduring daily power cuts up to 18 hours. Let's now bring in Zimbabwean social justice advocate Tendai Mpofane to discuss the impact of the energy crisis. Tendai, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. What's the electricity situation like this morning in Zimbabwe?
Good morning, Eldrin. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your program, and good morning to all your viewers. The electricity situation in Zimbabwe is dire, is nearing catastrophic levels. Right now, this morning, fortunately, where I am today, there is electricity, fortunately, but in neighboring suburbs in the same town, already we are hearing reports of power having gone as early as 5 a.m. And in most cases, as you have already mentioned, the power will be back around 11 after 18 hours, 11, 12 midnight. So most households go without electricity most of the day. And even if we do have electricity here where I am today, at the moment, it can go anytime. There is no predictability. It can go anytime without notice, without warning. There's no timetable. So even if you are into business or even conducting an interview, as we are doing right now, you are not certain that there will be power throughout. It can just go at any minute.
It can go at any minute. So tell us about what happened on Sunday. It's around 25 minutes after 8 o'clock in the evening. Then what happens?
Yeah, it was really something that shocked everyone, that took everyone by shock. The most curious thing, let me go back, that particular day, there was already load shedding, scheduled load shedding. So we had spent the whole day without electricity from morning, especially here where I am in Britain, where power had gone somewhere around 6 in the morning. The whole day there was no electricity. So we're expecting power to be restored around 10, 11, the usual time, and there was nothing. So we're wondering, okay, 12 midnight, 1 a.m., what's going on? So it seems like the load shedding itself then went straight into this national blackout. So in most cases, for most people, it wasn't a blackout that started in the evening. It was the whole, from morning, it was load shedding. In the evening, it was a national blackout. So power was only restored around 6 a.m. the following day. That was after 24 hours of not having electricity. So a lot of people were caught off guard. A lot of people were shocked. They didn't know what was happening. The grid collapsed and so forth. The last time we had a national power out, a blackout, I think that was about 20 or so years back. So we were not understanding what is going on as the situation worsened, because everyone is expecting the situation to worsen. Remember, we are most reliant on antiquated equipment from the 1950s, 1960s, from the colonial era. So it's like we are hanging by a thread. It can snap at any time. And it would not surprise anyone if this country was to be thrown into a perpetual blackout, where the government or ZESA can announce that we are not going to have electricity at all, because all the most of the power generating equipment has broken down. It's nearly irreparable. Right now, I was talking a few weeks back to one of the former board members of the Zimbabwe Electricity Supply Authority, and they were saying, Tendai, don't let these people lie to you. Most of our equipment, especially at Wangete power station, is obsolete. It's irreparable. At any time, if those plants can just shut down and they will not be able to switch them back on. So that would mean we are left with only 2 units, Unit 7 and Unit 8, which were commissioned last year, which can only give us 600 megawatts. So imagine if we are having to have a country with only 600 megawatts. Yes, we can talk about Kariba South, which in a good day would give us 1,000 thereabout megawatts. Yep. But at the moment, because of the drought, it's only firing at 10% of its capacity. So you can just imagine the dire situation that we are in, that we are just on the verge, on the brink of a major catastrophe if nothing is done now.
Yeah. In that initial statement that was issued, the Zimbabwe Electricity Supply Authority had said that they confirmed that there was a nationwide blackout, but they're calling it a systems disturbance that had taken place. Is it understood what that system disturbance is? And also considering that Zambia was also affected during that same time?
The problem, Aldrin, with this country is that there's a lot of misinformation coming from the authorities themselves. They don't want to come out in the open and say, this is the truth. This is what is really going on. So if you use such vague, generalized terms like system disturbance, what does that mean? Was there a breakdown? What happened? So that's the problem with our authorities, and that there is no transparency. There is no accountability. Right now, with some of these power outages that have increased in the recent past, no one knew that even the Wange 7 and 8 units that I mentioned to you before, the new ones, the brand new ones that were commissioned last year, they might also be switched off. Why? Because ZESA has to pay Sinohydro, a company from China, which is maintaining and operating that plant, something like $1 million. And right now they owe Sinohydro and Wange Electricity Supply Company that are maintaining that plant and operating it $400 million US that they owe, ZESA owes. So they can just switch off those two plants at any time. So that information is not divulged to the general public. So it's not surprising that you could be told something about a systems, whatever that was. And yet this could actually be a serious issue that the people of Zimbabwe and even Zambia would not be told about. Their problem is that our authorities are opaque. Everything is shrouded in mystery. They do not want to come out in the open as to exactly what is going on. So that is the major problem that we have in Zimbabwe. No one knows what really happened on Sunday.
And then, of course, the issue around electricity and energy security has an impact on the economy. We know that very well here in South Africa, and the impact that has on even the quality of life of citizens. On Monday, that is yesterday, President Emmerson Mnangagwa hosted the creditors and finance executives to look at the goals of clearing its debt, which accounts for around 80% of GDP. So Zimbabwe is already in a fix when it comes to the economy. The economy is already struggling. Speak to us about the impact of this security, electricity security, the lack of electricity security, and the impact that is having on the daily lives of individuals as well.
Well, Eldred, at the moment, to be honest, the electricity crisis is the greatest threat to the economy of Zimbabwe. According to some statistics, the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce puts the figure at $80 million that are being lost every month by our industry in commerce. Then the Zimbabwe National Mining Association, something like that, is putting the figure at 500 million annually that the mining sector in Zimbabwe is losing because of these power outages. I will not even talk about agriculture, because Zimbabwe needs the irrigation, because rain-fed agriculture is not working anymore in the light of climatic change, and we're just coming out of a drought. So most farmers this season will be very reliant on irrigation, which needs electricity. So you can see all these knives, if I can call them that are pointing at the economy of Zimbabwe, these daggers that are threatening to stab the economy of Zimbabwe at any moment. So if this electricity crisis is not addressed with the urgency that we believe it deserves, our industries, our farming, our mining will all collapse. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. They will collapse, because there is no business that is willing to fork out. A retail shop, a simple retail supermarket, they cannot afford to be running diesel-powered generators throughout the day. That is very expensive. So you'll find that a lot of retail outlets are already threatening to close shop. So you can just imagine if you are talking about a big industrial site or a mining site, and how are they going to cope if they need to buy diesel each and every day to to power generators. That is too much for the economy of Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe, for the past 2 decades at least, have already been suffering from an exodus of its population, but more specifically focusing on your skilled population. And I'm wondering, when a national state of disaster is then declared on electricity, what impact that could have, and what does it look like?
The impact will be, I don't know if it will be a step, at least a signal that the government at least recognizes and appreciates that we have a crisis. Only 2 years ago, the Zimbabwean government declared a state of national disaster on our roads, just because they've got potholes, which is a big deal, you know. So why not do the same? If you can do that for pothole roads, and say we need to give first priority with our budget, with our finances, even if it means getting loans, external creditors to finance the rehabilitation of our roads and the construction of more roads. Why can we not do the same for our electricity generation? Why can we not put a huge chunk of our budget, of our resources? Remember, Zimbabwe is a richly endowed nation. We are talking about the 7th largest producer of diamonds. We are talking about lithium. We are talking about gold. We are talking about black granite. Where are those resources going? Shouldn't they be channeled towards the construction of new power plants, new ones? Get rid of these colonial era things. We don't need them anymore. Let them be museums, like what we see in Soweto with those big towers. Let tourists come and see those antiquated machinery as part of our history. But let's use our resources to construct new power stations, renewable power stations. And we need the government to be serious and to show that seriousness by declaring a national state of disaster. That way, resources can be channeled towards the construction of new power plants that will avert this country from an imminent disaster.
Thank you so much for your time, Tendai Mpofane, the Zimbabwean social justice advocate.